Welcome back to Journalist Roundtable. We're going to pick right back up on our discussion of growth in San Diego County with Susan Farrell, who, did I get that right?
Sandra Farrell.
Sorry, brain malfunction on mine. With Sandra Farrell, who will speak to us more or less from the point of view of the rural community in our county. Sandra, can you tell us who you are and where you live and kind of what your general perspective is?
Well, I live actually in the Twin Oaks area,
Okay.
which is a small little rural community that's between San Marcos, Escondido, and Vista. And my family moved there in 1960. My father was in construction, contractor, and he built the house. And the family has continued to live there. I'm also a member of the Twin Oaks Valley Community Sponsor Group. So I'm here speaking tonight as an individual, not representing the group. But I was able to participate in the many of the meetings that were held from 2000 to 2011 on the county general plan. So.
And your general view of the value of the general plan is what?
Well, the general plan is really the underlying document on land use. It's a density-based general plan. And what the county tried to do was they said, okay, this is the kind of growth we need to accommodate. This is what's happening. How do we put the growth in so that it has the least amount of cost to the public in terms of putting in the infrastructure? And also to preserve the resources, both agricultural and natural resources that are very important to this county. So the general plan is the document that says basically where the density needs to occur to accommodate the growth and to minimize the costs.
Does that turn incentives kind of on their head, though, to say this is where density needs to occur, but we don't know if anybody's willing to put their money there, as opposed to over there where, you know, they like the freeway access better for the Lilacs Hills project in that case that voters turned down. Isn't that incentive kind of odd to say we're going to plan on making our density here and hope somebody comes along and builds?
Well, I think when they went through the general plan process, they identified the areas that made the most sense to accommodate growth, where they could get the infrastructure extended for the least amount of cost. And that's what they looked at. Now, whether or not somebody wants to build there, I think that's a separate discussion. And I don't know why someone wants to build in Lilac Hills and not in some of the other communities. Like there's the one in Escondido or just in the county area, trying to think of Harmony Grove. I mean, what's wrong with Harmony Grove? That's a nice community.
There are a lot of homes going in Harmony Grove right now,
so
700 already underway, I think.
But see, the infrastructure in terms of sewer and ability to supply water, fire and safety is close by, so it makes sense to grow there.
I think the issue might be for some people that that's not enough, you know, those 700 homes, and I think maybe another 700 planned between two different developments, you know, that the county needs far more than that. So, and I think part of what Kent was talking about, and we talked about it with the previous guest a little bit, if there's a desire for single family homes and suburban living, and a lot of the smart growth principles in the general plan call for urban growth or more, you know, how do you meet that market demand? How do you not just for the builders but for the consumers who want homes in neighborhoods like that?
Well, the county general plan does, as it says today, the amount of density that's allowed in the general plan in terms of the amount of units that can be built does meet and in fact exceeds what the SANDAG growth forecasts. So it's not that the numbers can't be there. Now what you're saying is that it's more people want single family homes and may not want to live in multifamily homes. And that is something that the county is going to have to wrestle with. But the bottom line is that if we want to look at the cost of development in terms of if you want to build these single family homes out into the more rural areas, then you've got to look at the cost to the public, the cost to build the infrastructure, the cost to maintain the infrastructure. Right now, San Diego County can't even maintain the roads that it has. So I think that's part of the thing that you
So
have to
building the
look at.
tax base there won't help with that infrastructure thing?
It might happen if the jobs are there too. Let's say if they were to build Lilac Hills, where do those people work? Is it going to be that close? I mean, 15 is pretty crowded as it is.
Yeah, the argument of not allowing more growth is that you push more people into Riverside County, who
Yes.
then drive down the 15, and it just takes them an extra 10 minutes with every increment of project that doesn't get done.
Yeah. No, I'm saying we need growth. But I think we need to really follow the county general plan to do it.
And your view of amendments to general plan then, and where the county planners or supervisors ultimately can say, you know what, we're going to give you an exception. You take a dim view of that, I would assume.
Well, once again, we have to look at what is the overall cost.
Uh-huh.
If we're going to change the density to accommodate more, we need to look at what is going to be the long-term cost to the public. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
But the county spent 11 years more that's at least the part that I sat in some meetings on, and $18 million of public money to come up with a general plan that would accommodate the growth in San Diego. So I am really reluctant to throw that out the window because of the $18 million. I mean,
Sure.
if they are, they need to have a good justification. Otherwise, give the public its money back.
And
Because I can fill a lot of potholes with $18 million.
True enough.
when you look at it, a lot of the reason that the projects have a hard time getting built is because the local community planning groups are opposed to it. And that is true not just in the unincorporated areas, that is also true in the urban areas too, right? So if the community planning groups in the urban areas say, no, 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 we don't want it, is it fair to ask the community planning groups who spent all those years working on the general plan in the unincorporated areas to just let go of all their plans too? It's kind of like it's the same sacrifice that's
Yeah,
being asked.
It's a tough situation, but I think with the community plans, I mean, one of the problems of the general plan is it didn't get the community plans completed for all the communities. So part of the NIMBYism or opposition or whatever you want to call it is because those community plans work hand in hand with the general plan, and they're almost like, they're not quite of an HOA,
Okay.
but they give everybody an idea of this is a community character, these are the expectations, this is what's going to work here, so that people in the community understand that what's going to be built near them is going to be a certain way, and people moving into the area understand sort of what the community's about. So that way everyone has a certain amount of expectations, and I don't think you're going to get that kind of opposition that you see. I think the opposition is that you've got one group that thinks it's a certain way, you've got another group that wants to do something different, and there's nothing in place really to provide guidance, which is a
Is that
community
true
plan.
throughout most of North County, that these community plans have not been set?
That's true of many of them. I think there's only about 3 or 4 that have community plans. I think Bonsall has one and Fallbrook has one, but I'm not sure about the others. I know Twin Oaks doesn't.
Uh-huh. Is there any kind of a carrot and stick to get people to do them? I assume somebody was supposed to do them.
Well, they were supposed to have been done during the general plan, but they ran out of time, and they passed the general plan, and then they were supposed to start on the community plans. But then during the general plan process, there were a number of property owners that weren't happy with the lower density that their property received. So the funds were diverted from completing the community plans, and they needed to complete the general plan amendment to accommodate these specific property owners. So hopefully, once they're done with that, they'll get back to the community plans.
Were you surprised or heartened by what happened with Lilac Hills Ranch and sort of the power of the people to rise up and say, we're not going to allow this development here? I know Newland Sierra is coming down the pipeline.
I was surprised because I saw the ads on TV and they were very compelling. And I didn't think people would see through those ads in terms of what was behind them, but they did. And do
Do you think more developers might go that initiative route, or do you think now that that failed, they will stick with the county planning process? And I asked this question earlier of someone too. What do you think about the new makeup of the Board of Supervisors? You know, are groups like yours nervous about the change on the Board of Supervisors with Kristen Gaspar joining, or do you feel like she'll be receptive to your concerns?
I don't feel either way at this point. I think, she'll probably work hard to do a good job, and we'll just have to wait and see. So,
Do you have something general to say about your position? You're obviously someone who lives on the outskirts in semi-rural San Diego County, would you say? About, as a community, what our choices are here, because I mean we can spread out into the rural areas, or we can fill in the urban areas. And I mean, what are the arguments to really do more filling in?
well, the argument's doing more filling in, and I think the county with their housing update is looking at that, because there's a background report that I found online the other night. And in it, they're looking at all the parcels that are in the unincorporated area of the county that have the potential for development that are west of the county water authority line. So they are serviced by water. Some of them are in the North County metro areas. A lot of them are smaller parcels. There's a couple of acres here or there. They're parcels that have been underdeveloped or have not developed at all. So I think the county's going to really look at those and try to put some incentives in so that they develop to a higher density. And that would make sense because these places are closer to services.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact is that the developer who buys land that was zoned for no houses is going to get it cheaper because it was zoned for no houses.
Yeah.
And then if he gets the law changed, he'll make a good profit on it.
Well,
Whereas,
yeah, I mean, land that has a lower density is less costly to buy than land that has a higher density.
yeah.
I mean,
Does
that's just
that
it.
create a similar tension, though, in some of those North County metro areas? Like Vista, for instance, has had a huge influx of multifamily housing, some in neighborhoods that were, previously or predominantly single-family housing or even commercial properties. So there's a lot of pushback, no matter where you are, it seems like people don't
Well,
want.
And the county has we have one Sprinter station, all the unincorporated area of the county, and it's at South Santa Fe and Buena Creek Road. And of course, they're going to have to really increase the density. I think it's 30 units per acre or something of that sort in that area. But the property owners around there, the people that live around there, are actually embracing that. They want to be part of that. They want to make sure that the amenities are there because the county built a lot of low-income housing, and they didn't put in the amenities, and they've become a problem. But if you build the low-income housing and you build the middle-income housing, you do a blending of housing types. You put in the amenities that are needed. You have the Sprinter station there. You put in the parks. You make sure that it's a safe community that you can get to work using the Sprinter line. You put those things in, and there's adequate shopping and corner stores and a nice restaurant. Maybe put in housing where the housing is above the store areas. Mm-hmm. If you do that, you'll create a nice little vibrant community there. And that's what needs to happen there. And the residents in that area are embracing that. So.
Well, I think we're just really, frankly, out of time. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us about this really important issue that I think we're all trying to struggle with and figure out how do we live here and make it work for ourselves. So thank you very much, Sandra.
Oh, you're welcome.